The night was never supposed to end this way. The maid, Naomi, ran barefoot across the gravel driveway, her lungs burning, arms trembling as she clutched two terrified children to her chest. Behind her, the mansion's floodlights flared like angry suns. A black SUV screeched to a halt at the gate, doors flung open, masked men shouting. She didn't think. She moved. "Hold on to me," she cried. The twins, sobbing, buried their faces against her. Then came the gunshot. A single echo shattered the night. Glass exploded. A security alarm wailed into the darkness. Naomi stumbled, shielding the children with her body, whispering prayers through tears. She was bleeding. She didn't know from where, but she kept moving. And when the police finally arrived, blue and red lights dancing against the mansion walls, the world saw her for what she truly was. Not just a maid, but a hero. But what no one knew was that within 24 hours, the very family she saved would fire her. This is the story of Naomi, the underestimated black woman who risked everything to save two children who weren't hers, and the truth that almost destroyed her life. Stay with me till the end, because nothing about this night is what it seems. Welcome back, wonderful family. Thank you for tuning into today's story. Have you ever been underestimated before? Or you showed kindness only to be met with cruelty? Share your story down in the comments, as I would be replying to every single one. Let's dive in. The Harrington mansion stood like a monument to perfection. Glass, marble, and silence. To Naomi, it was less of a home and more of a museum, a place where even the air seemed to obey the rules. She wasn't supposed to be seen unless spoken to, wasn't supposed to laugh unless the children laughed first, and definitely wasn't supposed to question anything. But she did. Quietly, thoughtfully, every day. Naomi had only been with the Harringtons for 3 months, yet she already knew their rhythm. The father's clipped footsteps on the marble floors at dawn, the mother's perfume lingering in every hallway, the boys' laughter echoing faintly like a forgotten song. Her job was simple. Take care of Ethan and Evan, 6 years old, brilliant, mischievous, and lonely in a house so big it swallowed sound. Every morning, she'd help them get dressed for their lessons. Ethan, the older twin by 4 minutes, was bold and curious, always asking why. Evan was gentler, softer, the thinker, the observer. Naomi adored them both more than she should have. Maybe because she saw herself in their small acts of rebellion, in the way they whispered secrets to her at night when the world was asleep. "Miss Naomi," Evan said one evening, his little voice trembling, "why do people call you the maid like it's bad?" Naomi froze. She was folding their pajamas, pretending not to care. "It's just a job title, sweetheart," she whispered. "People say things they don't understand. But you're the only one who listens to us," Ethan said. "Even mommy doesn't." That broke something inside her. A quiet ache she hid behind a practiced smile. The staff whispered about Naomi behind her back. The butler thought she was too outspoken. The housekeeper thought she was too ambitious. Mrs. Harrington, the lady of the house, thought she was too much of everything. The Harrington mansion stood like a monument to perfection. Glass, marble, and silence. To Naomi, it was less of a home and more of a museum, a place where even the air seemed to obey the rules. She wasn't supposed to be seen unless spoken to, wasn't supposed to laugh unless the children laughed first, and definitely wasn't supposed to question anything. But she did. Quietly, thoughtfully, every day. Naomi had only been with the Harringtons for 3 months, yet she already knew their rhythm. The father's clipped footsteps on the marble floors at dawn, the mother's perfume lingering in every hallway, the boys' laughter echoing faintly like a forgotten song. Her job was simple. Take care of Ethan and Evan, 6 years old, brilliant, mischievous, and lonely in a house so big it swallowed sound. Every morning, she'd help them get dressed for their lessons. Ethan, the older twin by 4 minutes, was bold and curious, always asking why. Evan was gentler, softer, the thinker, the observer. Naomi adored them both more than she should have. Maybe because she saw herself in their small acts of rebellion, in the way they whispered secrets to her at night when the world was asleep. "Miss Naomi," Evan said one evening, his little voice trembling, Why do people call you the maid like it's bad? Naomi froze. She was folding their pajamas, pretending not to care. It's just a job title, sweetheart, she whispered. People say things they don't understand. But you're the only one who listens to us, Ethan said. Even mommy doesn't. That broke something inside her. A quiet ache she hid behind a practiced smile. The staff whispered about Naomi behind her back. The butler thought she was too outspoken. The housekeeper thought she was too ambitious. Mrs. Harrington, the lady of the house, thought she was too much of everything. It wasn't her skin color alone that made her an outsider, though it didn't help. It was her confidence. Her eyes that met theirs without apology. Her calm intelligence that unsettled those used to quiet obedience. Mr. Harrington, a billionaire industrialist who built empires from boardrooms and algorithms, barely noticed her. But the twins did. And that was enough for Naomi. Until the day it wasn't. The warning signs began with something small. A strange black SUV parked down the road for 3 days straight. A delivery man who came twice in one morning, leaving no package. A phone call Mrs. Harrington dismissed as a prank. Naomi felt it first, that quiet chill that lives in a mother's gut, even when she's not one by blood. During an afternoon walk through the estate's garden, she caught the twins chasing butterflies toward the gate. And just beyond it, a man watching. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He turned away too quickly. Naomi's heart skipped. She hurried the boys inside, her instincts prickling like static. That night, she mentioned it to the head of security. He waved it off. You've been watching too many crime shows, Naomi, he chuckled. But the next morning, she found small footprints in the flower beds. Not the twins. She cleaned them herself. But she didn't forget. Later that week, Mrs. Harrington called her into the study. The woman's tone was smooth as glass, but her words cut sharp. Naomi, I've been hearing things. Naomi kept her eyes low. Things, ma'am? The staff says you've been acting suspicious, asking questions, watching the cameras. This is a home, not a police station. Naomi wanted to speak, to explain, but Mrs. Harrington raised a manicured hand. We appreciate your enthusiasm, but remember your place. The boys are fond of you, but let's not blur the lines. Of course, ma'am, Naomi said softly. When she left the room, her hands were trembling, not from fear, from frustration. She'd seen danger forming in the shadows, but no one would believe her. No one ever did. That night, the twins insisted on one last story before bed. Naomi sat between their small beds, reading by the soft glow of the lamp. Can you tell us a hero story? Ethan asked. Yeah, Evan added, yawning. One where the hero is small but brave. Naomi smiled faintly. You mean like the mouse who saved the lion? No, Ethan whispered, his eyelids heavy. Like you. Naomi froze. Her voice caught in her throat. She brushed a curl from his forehead and whispered, Sleep, my brave boys. Heroes are just ordinary people who do what's right, even when no one's watching. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The first sign of a storm that would change everything. Somewhere past midnight, Naomi woke to a sound. A creak where there shouldn't be one. A whisper carried by the wind. A door closing softly in the distance. Naomi stirred awake, heart thudding against her ribs. The digital clock glowed 1:57 a.m. For a long moment, she sat still, listening. The mansion was usually a living thing at night. The soft hum of the generator, the distant tick of clocks, the quiet sigh of conditioned air. But tonight, it was too still. She slipped on her shoes and stepped into the hallway. The air felt colder. The lights along the corridor flickered, faint, uncertain. When she reached the control room at the end of the hall, her stomach tightened. Every CCTV monitor black, just static. Naomi frowned, tapping one screen. Nothing. She tried the intercom. Dead. Something wasn't right. She picked up the security phone, no dial tone. Outside the window, rain began to fall, soft and rhythmic. She glanced toward the security post in the driveway. The booth was empty. No guards. No movement. The storm outside was building, but inside, a different kind of storm was already here. A low sound broke the stillness. A faint whimper, a child's voice. Naomi froze. Her heart lurched. Came from the twins' room. She moved quietly, instinctively, years of surviving on instinct guiding her now. She peeked through the half-open door. Two shadows. Tall. Moving. Fast. Ethan whimpered. A man hissed. Quiet. Naomi didn't think. She moved. The mansion was silent, the kind of silence that hummed before disaster. Naomi's pulse thundered in her ears as she pushed the twins' door open wider. Two men, dressed in black, faces masked, stood over the boys' beds. One had already lifted Evan. The other reached for Ethan. Put them down, Naomi whispered. A sound so soft, it could have been the wind. They turned. Flashlight beams sliced across her face. For one eternal heartbeat, nobody moved. Then the taller man lunged. Naomi grabbed the nearest thing, a brass lamp, and swung with everything she had. The crash shattered the quiet. Ethan screamed. "Run, Ethan!" she cried. "Run to the closet now!" The boy bolted. Evan wriggled free, sobbing. The smaller man cursed, grabbing Naomi's wrist, but she drove her knee up hard, wrenching free. She snatched both boys and darted into the hallway. The mansion lights flickered as the backup generator kicked in. Harsh, white light revealing chaos. Behind her, footsteps thundered. Naomi ran. Down the stairs, through the echoing foyer, her slippers sliding on polished marble. Ethan clung to her hand. Evan stumbled beside her, crying. She burst through the kitchen doors, lungs burning. "Help! Someone's in the house!" she screamed. The security monitors were black. The guards, the ones who'd laughed at her warnings, were nowhere in sight. Thunder cracked outside. The storm had rolled in full, hammering rain against the glass. The front door, locked electronically. The back, maybe. She turned, racing down the service corridor. The power flickered again, plunging them into near darkness. Lightning flashed, and in that white-blue burst, she saw the shadows following. They burst out the back door into the night. Rain hit like needles. The wind howled through the trees. Naomi clutched the twins, dragging them through the garden. Her bare feet sank into the mud. Her nightgown clung to her skin. Behind them, a shout. "Get them! Don't let her reach the road!" She didn't look back. The twins were crying now, terrified, but she kept moving. "Listen to me," she gasped, kneeling beside them behind the hedge. "We're going to play a game, okay? Quiet game. Whoever stays quiet the longest wins." Their small faces glistened with tears, but they nodded. Naomi's heart ached. They were so brave. A flashlight beam cut across the yard. They were close. Too close. Naomi spotted the old gardener's shed beyond the trees. "Come on," she whispered. "That way." They sprinted again, slipping, falling, getting up. Rain soaked their hair, their clothes, their courage. She shoved the shed door open, pulling them inside. Darkness swallowed them. For a moment, all she could hear was the storm and their trembling breaths. Ethan pressed against her, whispering, "Miss Naomi, are we gonna die?" Her throat closed. "No, baby. Not tonight." She looked around the shed, tools, old crates, a lantern. She turned the wick gently, light blooming in the dark. Outside, the voices grew louder. "Check the shed." Her stomach dropped. Naomi turned to the boys, eyes fierce now. "Hide in there," she whispered, pointing to an old storage trunk. "No sound, no matter what you hear." Evan started to cry. "Naomi, promise me," she said, voice trembling. "I'll come back for you." They climbed in. She closed the lid, leaving a tiny gap for air. Then she turned, gripping a shovel like a weapon. The shed door creaked open. A figure stepped in, flashlight sweeping. Naomi held her breath. He took one step too. She swung. The shovel connected with a thud. The man fell, groaning. "You should have stayed away," she hissed. But another voice came from the doorway. "Big mistake, lady." The second man rushed her. She stumbled back, slipping on mud, the shovel clattering away. He pinned her down, snarling. "You think you're some hero?" She clawed at his mask, gasping. "No," she said between breaths. "Just someone who loves them." Then, with a desperate twist, she grabbed the fallen lantern and smashed it across his arm. Flames leapt to life, small but furious. He screamed, rolling away. Naomi lunged for the twins' trunk, threw it open, and shouted, "Run!" They burst from the shed as the fire spread. The rain hissed against the flames, turning smoke into steam. Naomi ran, clutching the boys' hands, toward the distant glow of headlights. Someone was coming up the drive. A security vehicle. Finally, she waved frantically, shouting, "Help! There!" Gunfire split the night. Naomi ducked, covering the twins with her body. One of the kidnappers had followed, limping, furious, firing wildly. The security team returned fire. He went down, and then silence again. Only the rain. Naomi's hands shook as she pulled Ethan and Evan close. Their faces buried in her chest. They were safe. At least, she thought they were. Blue lights flashed across the wet lawn. Police, medics, chaos. Naomi sat on the steps, blanket around her shoulders, watching as the twins were carried to their parents. Hysterical, clinging, crying. Mrs. Harrington didn't even look at Naomi. Mr. Harrington gave her one curt nod, gratitude wrapped in distance. A detective approached. "Miss Naomi," he said gently, "we'll need your statement, but from what we've seen, you saved those boys' lives." She nodded faintly, voice breaking. "I just did what anyone would do." But deep down, she knew not everyone would have. Hours later, as dawn bled pale light across the estate, Naomi stood by the gate. Her hands were scraped, her hair soaked, her soul exhausted. She should have felt relief. Instead, she felt watched. From the balcony above, Mrs. Harrington stared down at her. Eyes cold, unreadable. A chill crawled down Naomi's spine. She didn't know it yet, but her nightmare wasn't over. Tomorrow, she'd be fired, blamed, betrayed, and cast out by the very family she'd nearly died to protect. And that would be the cruelest twist of all. The sun rose soft and golden over the Harrington estate, but nothing about that morning felt new. The house smelled of smoke and fear. The marble floors gleamed as if nothing had happened, as if a nightmare hadn't ripped through every inch of this mansion just hours before. Naomi sat alone in the guest lounge, wrapped in a gray blanket, hands trembling around a cup of untouched tea. Her uniform was gone, replaced by borrowed clothes too big for her small frame. A medic had cleaned her wounds, but not the kind that bled inside. From the hallway, she heard the twins crying, the sound cutting through her chest like glass. "Naomi!" Ethan's voice cracked, desperate. "We want Naomi." A security officer tried to calm them. "Your parents will be here soon, boys." But their small feet pattered down the hall anyway. Before Naomi could stand, the door burst open. Two little bodies slammed into her, arms wrapping tight around her waist. "Don't let them take you," Evan sobbed. Naomi knelt, holding them close, her throat tight. Hey, it's okay. I'm right here." She buried her face in their hair, the scent of shampoo and fear. For a moment it felt like safety again. But safety never lasted long in this house. Because at that same moment, footsteps approached. Sharp, cold, familiar. Mrs. Harrington stood at the doorway, perfectly dressed despite the sleepless night, a mug of coffee balanced in one manicured hand. Her eyes polished steel. "That's enough," she said softly. Too softly. "Boys, go to your room." The twins froze. "But now," they hesitated, glancing back at Naomi, tears streaking their cheeks. Naomi forced a smile she didn't feel. "Go on, sweethearts. I'll see you soon." She waited until they disappeared up the stairs before turning to face the woman who, hours ago, had barely thanked her for saving their lives. Mrs. Harrington's expression didn't waver. "Detectives are here. They need to speak with you again." Naomi stood, confused. "Of course. I already gave them my statement." Yes, the woman said, sipping her coffee. But new information has come up. Something cold slid down Naomi's spine. What kind of information? Mrs. Harrington didn't answer. She only turned, leading the way down the hall. The study felt smaller today. 2 detectives sat by the window, one scribbling in a notepad, the other flipping through photos. Mr. Harrington stood by the fireplace, hands in his pockets, gaze distant. Miss Naomi, the older detective began, we appreciate your cooperation. You were incredibly brave last night. Thank you, she whispered. He exchanged a look with his partner. However, we have to ask about something unusual. He slid a photograph across the table. Naomi leaned closer. The image showed a control room, security monitors frozen in static. And there, by the console, a faint set of fingerprints highlighted in dusting powder. The detective's tone was gentle, but loaded. These prints match yours. Naomi blinked. Of course they do. I checked the cameras before the power went out. The younger detective nodded slowly. Right? The same cameras that were disabled moments before the intruders entered. Her heart skipped. Wait, are you saying? We're not saying anything, he interrupted, flipping to another photo. But someone inside had to know the system layout. The timing was precise. Naomi shook her head, disbelief washing over her. You can't think Mr. Harrington spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet, tired. Naomi, you were the only staff member awake. The guards swore they saw you near the back gate earlier that evening. She stared at him, stunned. Because I was checking after I saw someone outside. I told your wife that. Mrs. Harrington folded her arms. And yet you didn't mention disabling the cameras. Naomi's breath caught. Because I didn't. Silence. Heavy, suffocating. The older detective closed his notepad. We're not making accusations, but we may need to keep you available for further questioning. Naomi's voice broke. I risked my life for your children. Mrs. Harrington's gaze didn't soften. And we're grateful. But until the investigation is complete, we can't have you here. Naomi looked at her. Really looked. No worms. No gratitude. Just polished cruelty disguised as civility. Are you firing me? She whispered. Mrs. Harrington didn't flinch. Consider it a precaution. An hour later, Naomi stood at the front steps of the mansion, her few belongings packed in a small duffel bag. Rain clouds still lingered, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and betrayal. The twins' voices echoed faintly from an upstairs window. Naomi! Ethan shouted, pounding on the glass. Don't go! Evan cried beside him. Naomi lifted her hand, waving through tears. Mr. Harrington appeared behind the boys, gently pulling them away from the window. His expression was unreadable, maybe guilt, maybe shame. Mrs. Harrington didn't come out to say goodbye. The driver, the same man who'd acted nervous days before, loaded her bag into the back seat of the taxi. When their eyes met through the rearview mirror, he looked away too quickly. Something in Naomi's chest stirred. Unease, realization, maybe both. She glanced back one last time. The house loomed behind her. Spotless, cold, indifferent. She had bled on its floors, prayed in its shadows, saved its children. And now she was being erased from it like she'd never existed. As the taxi pulled away, Naomi whispered to herself, "Be brave for me, boys." Her reflection in the window blurred with tears and rain. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. Naomi was mopping the lobby floor when 2 men in suits entered. Detectives. Miss Naomi Jacobs? She froze. Yes. One of them smiled faintly. We finally found him. The second kidnapper. He confessed. Her mop clattered to the floor. Confessed to what? The detective exchanged a look with his partner. To everything. The break-in. The planning. The inside help. Naomi's pulse quickened. Inside help. He nodded. The driver, Raymond Huxley. He was working with them. He used the security codes to disable the cameras and tried to frame you. Said you were getting too close to figuring it out. Naomi sank into a chair, her hands shaking. The driver. the one who'd looked away in the mirror. Her gut had known, but her voice had never been enough. The detective's tone softened. "You were right, Miss Jacobs. About all of it." For a long time she couldn't speak. Then quietly, "Did the family know?" "They do now." That evening, Naomi sat on the steps of her apartment building, the sunset turning the city gold. A black car pulled up. She didn't need to see the emblem to know who it was. Mr. Harrington stepped out first, older somehow, heavier with guilt. Behind him, Mrs. Harrington, her perfect poise cracked by something raw and human. And then, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds, the twins, Ethan and Evan. They ran before their parents could speak, arms flinging around Naomi's neck. "Naomi!" they cried in unison. She caught them, tears spilling as she held them tight. Ethan looked up. "They told us you didn't want to see us again." Naomi's breath hitched. "That's not true. I thought you didn't want to see me." Mrs. Harrington's voice trembled. "Naomi, please. We were wrong. Terribly wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. But..." Naomi stood, her expression calm, steady. "I forgave you the night you turned your back on me," she said softly, "because I knew fear makes people cruel. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." Mr. Harrington nodded, ashamed. "We've cleared your name. The press will release a statement tomorrow. If there's anything we can do..." Naomi smiled faintly. "There is. Make sure your boys never grow up thinking silence is safer than truth." The couple exchanged a look, the kind only guilt can forge. Naomi knelt, brushing the twins' hair back. "Remember what I told you," she whispered. "Heroes are just ordinary people who do what's right, even when no one's watching." Evan sniffled. "Are you coming back with us?" Naomi hesitated. The question hung between them like smoke. Then she shook her head gently. "I have a new job," she said, "teaching other caregivers how to keep children safe. It's time I build something of my own." The boys hugged her again. Longer this time, like they understood goodbye wasn't always forever. Weeks later, Naomi was teaching a safety workshop at a community center. Bright faces, laughter, healing. During a break, a man approached her. A tall stranger in a gray coat. "Miss Jacobs," he said politely, "I was told to give you this." He handed her an envelope, heavy, unmarked. Before she could ask, he was gone. Inside, a single sheet of paper. A handwritten note. "Some truths stay buried for protection. But you should know there was a third man that night. One the police never caught. He was paid to silence the driver after his arrest. And now, someone's asking questions about you again. No signature." Naomi's pulse slowed. She folded the note carefully, slipped it into her pocket, and looked toward the children laughing at the far end of the room. Her eyes softened, then hardened again, like someone who had learned how to live between peace and vigilance. She smiled to herself, whispered, "Then let them come," and walked back into the light. If you sacrificed your life to save another only to be met with cruelty, would you forgive so easily? What do you think about this story? Let's hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, kindly hit the like button and subscribe to this channel as we post touching and inspiring stories with life lessons like these every week, and you do not want to miss them. Till we meet again. Bye.